Hello, Ben Chapman here for another video, and now I want to talk about why I think StarCraft is awesome and why I love it, why I like playing it, and these days I even enjoy watching people play more than I enjoy playing myself. We'll talk about that, but while I talk about things, I'm going to be showing the perspective of a professional player. This is a replay from a professional game that was played during a tournament. So we can just kind of watch as he goes to work here, trying to win his game, while I talk about it. So why I find StarCraft so fun, why I think everyone should play it. And you'll see his camera kind of go crazy as professional players have to uh, bounce around the map, try to get as much information as possible.
Additional supply depots required.
I'm just gonna turn the sound down a little bit first, actually. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I would say the number one reason StarCraft is awesome is that it's probably the most challenging game to play. Uh, when you encompass everything it takes to win a game. And when I say game, I don't just mean video game. It might just be the most challenging game that you can play, in that you need to both be sound strategically, but also mechanically. You'll notice how he's zipping around the map. You have to be very quick on your keyboard and mouse as you try to create your buildings, can control your units throughout the game. Um, so there's a certain barrier. You need to play enough that you get comfortable with controlling your base and controlling your units, but also knowing what to do, what to build, and what to do with your units that you do build. There's a whole big pile of depth there to explore, and what that means is StarCraft is a lot like chess in that the better player will usually win. Now, there is more randomness than there is in chess because you don't know exactly what your opponent's doing, and you could be a lot better, but they might choose a particular strategy that you're not ready for, and they could beat you. So it's not like chess where like the best player wins, the better player wins like 99% of the time, but it's still a high percent, and it really is degree of variance. Like one of these professional players would be like 99% to win against a brand new player, but between two professionals, the difference can be pretty small, and it'll come down to how they do in that particular day. Because even though there's that strategic side to it, what to build and what to do with those units, because it's a physical game, like you have to be able to control your mouse and keyboard in an effective way. Someone you might not be at your best that day for whatever reason. Maybe you didn't sleep well or eat well or something, so you might not control or move around the map as quickly as you do at your peak. So it's sort of like a professional sport in that way, that you have to be in good physical condition in terms of
Additional
how
supply
you
depots required.
do with your keyboard and mouse, but you also need to have that strategy side as well. Um, so because it is so challenging, because we have to keep track of so many things and make good use of our units, and once we've built them, there is a nice sense of accomplishment when you succeed at this game. it's so much work to get to a position where you can win that it feels great when you do win. So that's one of the fun parts of the game. And when you lose, there's no one to blame but yourself. This isn't a team game like many other popular like computer games are these days. Your wins and losses are solely on your decisions and how well you did things, how well you controlled. So there's a lot of pride on the line because it is all you out there, which it makes things stressful but also rewarding when you succeed. Personally, the one thing I love about playing the game is just building up a big economy, building up a bunch of buildings, and then building a huge army. So like that, just the process of doing that, that's what I like best about it. I am less good and both less not don't have as much fun as with controlling the army once I build it. I like just having a large army and then just setting it to attack and let the chips fall where they may. Whereas you'll see here, there's the better player you are, you can do fancier things with smaller numbers of units, and so he's right now controlling these flame-throwing Hellions
Enemies under attack.
while maintaining his base and everything. So like the better you can be at that sort of thing, the better of a player you're going to be. But that's the other thing is there's many different styles of play. So you might be an expert at controlling your units and getting the most out of every
Additional
unit,
supply depots
but maybe
required.
you're not the best at making sure you have a perfectly efficient economy. Whereas someone else might focus more on their economy, not have as good control of their units, but they have so many
Additional
units it
supply
doesn't
depots
matter.
required.
So the different styles of play mean that different the games play out differently all the time. Even though there are three races and there's a lot of different unit choices amongst each race, so there is going to be a lot of kind of variance game to
Additional
game. What
supply
people choose
depots
to do will be
required.
different pretty often. It's pretty hard for the game to be figured out in that you're not going to see the same build every time in every matchup. So for one, there's a lot of different matchups. There's Terran versus Zerg, Terran versus Protoss, Terran versus Terran. There are mirror matchups, and then Protoss versus Zerg. So there's first off, there's just a number of different matchups depending on which race each side is playing. But also within each matchup, there's a lot of different approaches, and if you're creative and come up with a cool new strategy for a given matchup, the opponent might not be ready for it. You might win based on just the strategy, like in terms of what units you choose to build and how you use them. So there's a lot going on there. Um, Another factor is the maps. So right now we're looking at a map. You see in the mini map, bottom left hand corner, there's hundreds of different maps, and the way they're laid out can benefit or uh, be a problem for different types of units. Some maps are beneficial for siege tanks. Some are better for flying units. There can be like island-based maps, so there's like expansions that you can only get to by flying over worker units to build a base there. So depending on how the map's laid out, you can really change the strategy. So there really are infinite possibilities whenever you're watching a game of StarCraft or playing. There's just a number of different ways a given game can play out, so it doesn't get boring in that sense. Like in chess, there's a million different ways a game can play out as well, but all the pieces are static. You know exactly what you're up against. Every game is the same in terms of you know what pieces they are. So
Additional supply
the
depots
variety
required.
you get playing StarCraft is really cool. Um, Getting back to the different variety. The predecessor to this game was watching StarCraft 2. There was StarCraft 1. StarCraft Brood War was the expansion to StarCraft 1. That game came out in 1998. It's still being played on a professional level on TV in Korea. So that's a game that will probably never go away. In fact, Blizzard, the company that made the game, is coming out with an HD version this summer. So it's remastered. It's going to be the same exact gameplay, but just sharper looking graphics, so that you can watch it on your HD TV and it looks nice.
Add-on
You'd
complete.
think that game would have gotten boring by now. Why would people watch it on TV? Why would there be a lot of
Data
people
center upgrade
pl-
complete.
uh, becoming professionals to be as good as they can at the game? And that game hasn't even been patched or changed for a good 10 years. So, if maybe even longer than that. So, in terms of like what the units do in StarCraft 2, they change the units around from time to time based on balance. They want to make sure the
Additional
three
supply
races are
depots
evenly
required.
balanced, so they'll increase hit points or change what an ability might do on a high tech unit. But StarCraft 1 hasn't been changed, and people continue to play it, and it doesn't get boring because, well, that particular game is it's actually a lot harder than StarCraft 2 in terms of there's just mechanically they made it so it's just harder to control things. It's already hard to control things in StarCraft period, but in StarCraft 1, you can only control 12 units at a time. You can't control multiple buildings at a time. So there's a lot more clicking. And so the faster you are, the more you can do. And that game is much more of a physical challenge in terms of whoever can make the game bend to their will better will win a lot of the time at a certain level. Um, so when you get to the pro level of that game, those people have managed sort of mastered the physical side of it, and now you get to see the strategy, some of the strategy. Now that they've can actually control the game, very few people can even get to that point. So just the sheer difficulty of the game is part of the reason why it's awesome. And one of the beauties of StarCraft 2 is they do have a
Building complete.
matchmaking system where you will get, when you play against other people, it's going to match you with people of similar skill. So you're gonna, when you early on when you play, you're gonna be up against people who also don't really know what they're doing and they're making mistakes, and it lets you learn the game at a to a point where you still can win some games even though you're not great yet. Um, so once you play the game a little bit, even just a little bit, you'll get a huge appreciation for the professional players, how good they are. When you notice how hard it is to play, how hard it is to keep up with everything. So when you see what they're able to do, that's part of the allure of watching the professional play. And there's a number of different leagues going on all the time, both StarCraft 2 and Brood War, the original game, and you can find that stuff on YouTube. I'll link to some of them in the description below, just to get a feel for some of those professional tournaments. They have people commentating on the game, so you know what's going on. Of course, the more you play, you'll have a better understanding of what's happening, and like what units do what, and how do you control them, and maybe even you'll know a little bit more about the maps, because again the maps can play a big part in the strategy. So the more you play, the more sense you can make of the professional play. But the commentators do a good job of explaining at a basic level what's going on and what's important. So I highly recommend that you check out some professional play. Definitely play the game. StarCraft 1, the original game, is now free to play. You can download that. Just search Play StarCraft and you'll be able to find it. StarCraft 2 is relatively cheap if you want to check that out. I do recommend playing StarCraft 2 before 1 in terms of learning the basics of how StarCraft works, just because it is actually a lot easier in terms of how the game plays out. How do you make it a lot easier in terms of controlling units and building buildings, things like that. Whereas
Mineral field
StarCraft
complete.
1 is the better game in terms of just being a pure game, but it is harder to get into because it's a lot clunkier. But that clunkiness makes it even more challenging, which is part of the point. Um, so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not gonna watch this whole game. Goes on for another about 20 minutes, so we won't be doing that. But I hope that you check out some pro games. Definitely try playing the game. It is quite fun on just a basic level of just
Research
exploring, see
complete.
what the different units do, building up different buildings and seeing what comes out of them, expanding your economy. Learning all those things is pretty fun on a basic level. So even just going in and playing against the computer to learn these things can be rewarding. But the
Mineral
real fun
field
is playing against
complete.
other players and competing and seeing what you can do, challenging yourself in the hardest game there is, um, and getting the rewards of succeeding there. So, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Have some fun with StarCraft.